Hello, everybody. So we're here having these fabulous conversations about blockchain and changing the world and all these things, and I'm here to talk about Excel. And you guys are going to go, what the hell, am I at the wrong conference? Well, I'm going to talk to you about one of the key things we have. There's a big problem with Excel that basically most companies in the world still run on Excel. And we do quite some interesting things we're doing with that around algorithms and around using big data to leverage what we contain in Excel and how we can take away risk from organizations. So why are you listening to me? Well, I'm an accountant by trade. I sit on the board of CPA Australia, which is one of the largest accounting bodies in the world. I have a number of software companies, one called EUC+, which is what we're here to talk to you about today. I also have a consultancy which serves the financial services industry. So most of the large banks, the ones you've been hearing about, JP Morgans and Citigroup and all those, are clients of ours. So I'm all about that. And I've also been a developer. So 27 years working in this space, have built a lot of the things that you would have used at various banks or driven that kind of change in large organizations. So won a lot of awards for that along the way as well. So particularly around quality, making sure that anything we deliver in a software space has to have high levels of quality. So because we're talking a lot about launching products, I thought I'd give 5 key quick tips on what is important when you launch a product. First of all, not falling in love with your product and falling in love with your clients. We sit there, whether we're creating blockchain or we're creating some other new thing, we're going to sit there and we might get very passionate about it, we might forget about the customer. And I've noticed a few other speakers who've said that as well, but that's the absolute most key thing we do in anything we develop. Making the experience very simple and intuitive. There's a reason why when we look at products and things like Google and Apple and Amazon, they're very simple and easy to use. Netflix, there's no big manual you have to learn. And most of the corporate products that we use don't fit that criteria. Make it visually spectacular. It's got to look nice so that people actually want to use it. Trying to solve the world in one step. I've seen so many things that, a lot of the development that we've been involved in, you see monolithic architecture written on a mainframe back in 1983. We're going to replace that with the monolithic architecture today. And that just doesn't work. We're all about microservices, doing things in containerization, making sure that we can deliver into production multiple times per day. If you're not at that level, then you're going to get left behind. And the last point, if the software isn't quality, it's worthless. So that's a huge one. Anyone can go and write code, but if it isn't quality, it's absolutely worth nothing. And particularly when we're talking about Fintech and getting very much into these very regulated markets that we're all facing off to at the moment, talking about taking over for banks, highly regulated, things go wrong, enormous costs for players in these spaces. Okay, so spreadsheets have lots of errors, okay? This is a study from the University of Hawaii done a number of times. It's pretty known. As they get bigger and more complex, there's more errors. Forbes say it's one of the most dangerous software, or the most dangerous software on the planet, Microsoft Excel, because if things go wrong, and there's 833 million Excel users globally, and you would be amazed at how many companies still run on this. So this major problem that faces everything from small challenger banks who zoom up to large companies, one of our clients who's opened in 16 countries in Europe in a very short period of time, the whole financial thing is run on Excel. Fines, JP Morgan got fined $6 billion and $1 billion, so lost $6 billion in trading and $1 billion in fines. SocGen, sponsor, sorry about that, but €4 billion loss, all because someone manipulated Excel in a spreadsheet report. So we can have these massive, smart systems sitting there, but if the glue between them is Excel, we have a major problem. And the list just goes on, M&S, Convivality, Carillion, Westpac, etc., etc. Sorry? We can do that, yeah, sure, no problem at all. So what do the regulators say? So regulators are all saying that if we're dealing with Excel, we need to have controls. Okay, we need to have controls, be looking at appropriate controls from the PRA, and then we can go to HKMA, and they're going to say the same thing. Controls and practices and responsibilities with respect to end-user computing. The list just keeps on going on, all saying the same thing, lots and lots of controls. So how do we deal with this? How do we go into a large company or even a small company and set this up so that we're able to manage this risk and then leverage some smart algorithms and use the data that we have there to actually make some sensible choices? So first of all, we think that the worst thing you could possibly do is have a policy that you stick in your bottom drawer. We've all written these policies. Have one that you can actually execute. So we started with the board. we come in and have a policy into the risk committee, and we say, can we actually put executable rules in that? We put thousands of rules into that, defining how you get control over Excel, looking at all the different formulas, what's good practice, what's bad practice. This is going to get your auditors and your regulators very happy because they're going to say you've got this under control, and then we're going to be able to execute that at a point in time. So if something changes, we can push a button. You've got 20,000 spreadsheets in your company, and bang, we can check them all. Huge, huge power in that. When we do that, we come up with these little things like this is an example of one of the screens in EUC Plus that's basically identified some things that are warnings, large workbooks, and contains a dummy keyword, or functions have failed. And we can get that detail in every spreadsheet in your organisation. Okay, so here's our process. This is what we do from top to bottom. We find every spreadsheet, which is what we call locate. So it literally goes in and it finds where they are, get a massive big list. Then the next step, which those 5 steps there, we say that if you can use an ATM, you can use our software. That's our benchmark for any software. We want someone who's your lowest level graduate or not even graduated, who's come in a couple of months in the job. They can use the ATM, they can use the software. They register their spreadsheets, they categorise them, and this is where the first part of I guess, our USP comes in. We scan and secure them, and we lock them down, so you can't accidentally change formulas, change the data that's in there. So if you're an insurance company and you're running some complex model, and you'd be amazed at how many of the insurance companies that we deal with run it all on Excel, all their actuarial models are run on Excel, we can lock that down so you can't accidentally change the model. Okay? Once we have that, we then have a living history of every version, which we can flip back and forward, and then we can basically validate them back to the user. So where the real power for us comes in is once we've done that, we have every cell, every formula, every piece of metadata around the spreadsheet, things the users put into themselves. And we now have this massive piece of data where we can define what's going on. So you might have system 1, system 2, and we're moving data through Excel and putting it into there. The number of big implementations that I've seen go wrong in my career because something happened in Excel that no one knew what was going on. No one had any idea that there were 500, 5,000 spreadsheets that were sitting there plumbed between different systems. So we are now able to do that and analyse. So let's say we're dealing some of the stuff we're talking about, financial crime. Sanctioned counterparty from, I won't name any countries, but let's say from a country that's been sanctioned. We're then able to turn around and say, we can find where that is in all that Excel, every single piece of data. We're able to scan and look for different ways that the data is moving across your organisation and be able to really give you some benefit from that. This is anything from a small AIM-listed company who might have published to the stock exchange and got the numbers wrong, right through to global companies, of which we're working with a number of those at the moment. So from that point, we are then able to do things like start to eliminate, understand the processes, understand how this data is flowing, and we can start to get rid of Excel and make our large-scale movement from monolithical old architecture to new architecture, whatever that might be, very, very easy and simple and straightforward. And it just actually gives you that power that you don't have in a normal organisation. So I think I'm down to my last minute? No. Okay. So I normally give this talk in 45 minutes. I generally, so I've absolutely sort of flown through it and cut a lot out of it. So there's time for some slides or some questions if people want to ask any questions to sort of cover off. And to sort of explain, I guess, how we're using the data, how we're then able to run sort of algorithms on that data and find things you might know about. So does anyone have any questions either on Slido or?
Anything on Slido? But you've also got a stand out in the foyer, so if people want to come and ask questions, they're going to be able to do that. So we've got one up the front here from the... Yes.
Really interesting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How much is it?
How much is it? So it's licensed on a per spreadsheet basis, but we have tiered licenses that go through that. So
starting from? Sorry? Starting from? Give us a price. Give us an indicative.
Indicative price depends on the size of your organisation, and we can come and chat to us out there, and we'll
I want a number.
Yeah, it depends on the size of your organisation because we start from.
What was that hashtag?
So it's not expensive, believe me.
Okay. Anyone else? Otherwise, please do go and follow up with the stand. Oh,
so that's a very good question. So, so the interesting thing about that is most people approach this from a software or technological perspective. So we actually approach it from a risk perspective. So we're looking at the whole concept that we can go into the risk committee of your company, and we can literally look at that and we can say, how do we now take that risk away from the board? So particularly when we have things like SM&CR in the UK and things like BEAR in Australia, which is basically the same legislation but written in Australian, we basically look at that from the risk perspective. So Google Sheets is fine, and Microsoft have a product that does it as well, that literally looks at how you can look at tracing the data, but it doesn't give you that entire attestation from board right down through, so you actually have security around the data.
Great, thank you, Chris. That was fabulous. So
Fantastic,
go out and see EUC in the exhibition area.